My wife once asked me to apologize for moving a pair of scissors. Not because I broke them, not because I lost them, because I put them back in the wrong drawer. I remember standing there, completely confused. "They're just scissors," I said. She looked at me with tears of frustration in her eyes. "No, they aren't." At that time, I thought we were arguing about scissors. It took us nearly 10 years to realize we weren't. If you had met my wife back then, you probably would have admired her. Everyone did. She was a nurse, calm in emergencies, compassionate with patients, exceptionally organized. The kind of person who could work a 12-hour shift without forgetting a single detail. Her co-workers respected her. Her patients trusted her. To everyone else, she seemed like the woman who had everything under control. I thought I was the luckiest husband in the world. I had no idea that the same perfection everyone admired was quietly exhausting her and slowly changing the way our family lived. Our home looked beautiful. Every book was perfectly aligned. Every towel folded the same way. Every cabinet organized with incredible precision. At first, I loved it. I thought she simply enjoyed being organized. Then I started noticing something. It wasn't that she liked order. She needed it. If something wasn't exactly where it belonged, she couldn't relax. One Saturday morning, after she'd worked several exhausting night shifts, I decided to surprise her. I cleaned the entire house, vacuumed, did the laundry, loaded the dishwasher, even organized the kitchen. When I finished, I felt proud of myself. I couldn't wait for her to wake up. But when she woke up, she walked into the kitchen, looked around, and frowned. "You folded the towels wrong." I laughed. I didn't know towels had a wrong way. They do. She unfolded every towel I'd folded. Then she opened the dishwasher. "The plates are facing the wrong direction," she said. Without another word, she unloaded everything and loaded it again. I stood there in silence. 3 hours of trying to help, and somehow I'd made things worse. After that, I stopped helping as much. Not because I didn't care, because I was afraid. Afraid I'd do something the wrong way. Sometimes I'd stand in the kitchen holding a coffee mug, trying to remember exactly where she'd want it. The strange thing was, I wasn't afraid of making a mistake. I was afraid of hurting her, because when things weren't exactly right, she didn't just become annoyed, she became overwhelmed. "Why can't anyone in this house do one simple thing properly?" she'd shout, and I'd say, "I was only trying to help." And she'd say, "I know, but now I have to do everything again." The arguments were never really about coffee mugs or towels or scissors. We just didn't know that yet. The hardest part wasn't the shouting, it was what happened afterward. She'd disappear into the bedroom, sometimes crying, sometimes quietly saying, "I'm sorry." She wasn't trying to be cruel. She was suffering. Neither of us understood why. Leaving the house became another challenge. If we were meeting friends at 7, she'd start getting ready before 6. Her hair, her makeup, her clothes, everything had to be perfect. She'd check herself in the mirror over and over. Then suddenly she'd stop. "I can't go." "What do you mean?" "My hair doesn't look right." "I would say it looks beautiful," she replied. "You don't understand." She was right. I didn't. Sometimes we'd cancel our plans. Sometimes we'd arrive an hour late. Eventually, our friends stopped inviting us as often, not because they didn't care, but because they never knew if we'd actually show up. Slowly, our whole family changed. We started walking on eggshells. Before moving anything, I'd ask myself, is this where she'd want it? Before putting groceries away, will this upset her? Our home was spotless, but it wasn't peaceful. It felt like we were all trying to pass a test without ever knowing the rules. The strange thing was, the person who suffered the most wasn't me. It was her. No matter how hard she worked, no matter how perfectly she cleaned, no matter how much she sacrificed, she never seemed satisfied. It was as if she was chasing something she could never catch. One night, I was watching a film alone while she was sleeping. The main character reminded me so much of my wife. The same need for everything to be exactly right. The same way small things could unravel her, that it stopped me cold. Maybe that's it, I thought. Maybe her problem is perfectionism. It felt like an answer. For a while, I believed it was. I had no idea perfectionism was only the mask. The real story was hidden much deeper, and one quiet night, everything would finally begin to make sense. For a long time, I blamed her job. She was a nurse. Every shift demanded perfection, and one small mistake could have serious consequences. I told myself she was simply bringing the stress home. But then we went on vacation. No patients, no deadlines, no responsibilities. Just the two of us. I thought we'd finally relax. Instead, I watched her stand in front of the mirror for almost an hour. She changed her clothes 3 times, redid her makeup twice, brushed the same strand of her hair over and over again. Finally, she sat down on the bed. "I can't go." I sighed. "Why?" She stared at the floor. "I don't look right." I looked at her. She looked beautiful. There wasn't a single thing wrong. I took her hand. "You look amazing." She slowly shook her head. "You don't understand." As the years passed, her body began telling a story she couldn't. The migraines became more frequent. She barely slept. Even on her days off, she couldn't sit still. If she wasn't cleaning, she was planning. If she wasn't planning, she was worrying. And If she wasn't wearing, she was criticizing herself for not doing enough. Nothing was ever enough, especially for herself. Then came the night I'll never forget. I woke up around 2 in the morning. The bed beside me was empty. I found her sitting alone in the living room, the lights off, only the glow of a street light coming through the window. She was crying quietly, the kind of crying that comes from someone who's been strong for far too long. I sat beside her. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "I'm so tired." I held her hand. She kept staring at the floor. No matter how hard I try, I never feel good enough. Those words hit me harder than anything she'd ever shouted. For years, I thought I was fighting my wife's anger. That night, I realized her anger had never been the real problem. It was protecting something much deeper, a woman who believed she would never be enough. The next morning, I asked her a question. Would you ever consider talking to a psychologist? She was silent for a long time. Then she nodded. I think I need help. It was the first time either of us had said those words out loud. The first few therapy sessions were exhausting. Sometimes she'd come home helpful. Other times she'd cry all the way home. One evening she said, "I don't think this is working. I feel worse than before." Her psychologist had warned her this might happen. When you've ignored a wound for years, cleaning it hurts before it heals. Then, during one session, her psychologist asked a question that changed everything. When did you first learn that making mistakes weren't safe? My wife didn't answer immediately. Instead, she started crying. Memories she'd buried for decades began coming back. Her mother had been a teacher. Her father had served in the military. Their home was full of love, but it was also full of expectations. Discipline mattered. Achievement mattered. Doing your best wasn't enough. You were expected to be the best. When she brought home perfect grades, her parents celebrated. They hugged her, praised her, told everyone how proud they were. But when she made mistakes, no one shouted, no one punished her, but she could feel the disappointment. "I hated that silence," she told me later. "It made me feel like I wasn't enough." Then she said something I'll never forget. "I think I spent my childhood trying to earn my parents' love." My heart broke because I knew her parents loved her. But children don't always understand love the way adults intend it. They understand what they experience. At her next appointment, her psychologist explained something that changed both of our lives. Children don't say, "My parents have impossible expectations." They say, "Something must be wrong with me." So they create rules to stay safe. My wife had created one without even realizing it. If I'm perfect, people will love me. If I make mistakes, I'll disappoint them. Her psychologist looked at her gently. Perfectionism is not your personality. It's the survival strategy of a little girl who believed she had to earn love. For the first time in years, my wife stopped seeing herself as broken. Instead, she finally began to understand the frightened little girl she'd been carrying inside her all along. And that was where her healing truly began. Understanding the problem wasn't the same as healing it. That was only the beginning. Her psychologist, a soft-spoken woman named Donna, told my wife, "You've spent 40 years teaching your brain that perfection keeps you safe. We're not going to erase the belief overnight. We're going to teach your brain a new one." The first step was learning to notice the voice inside her head. Every time she made the smallest mistake, she had to write down exactly what she was thinking. At first, she thought it would be easy, but it wasn't. Her notebook quickly filled with sentences like, "You're so careless. You should have done better. People are going to think you're incompetent. You're failing." One evening I asked, "Do those thoughts really go through your mind every day?" She looked at me and quietly said, "I've heard them for so long. I thought they were just my personality." Then came the hardest part of therapy. She had to stop avoiding imperfection. Instead, she had to practice it on purpose. One week, her homework was to leave a coffee mug on the living room table overnight. Another week, she had to send an email after checking it only once. She had to leave a cushion slightly crooked. Walked out of the house even if everything didn't feel exactly right. To most people, those tasks sound ridiculous. To her, they felt terrifying. The first night she left the coffee mug on the table, she couldn't relax. She walked past it again and again. "I need to put it away." "You don't need to," I said gently. She said, "My heart is racing." And I answered, "I know." She looked at the mug. Then she looked back at me. For the first time, instead of obeying her fear, she stayed where she was. The next morning, she walked into the living room. The mug was still there. She laughed, a genuine laugh. "I can't believe I was afraid of that." Another exercise changed her even more. Donna asked, "When you make a mistake, how do you speak to yourself?" She answered immediately, "I call myself a stupid, a failure, not good enough." If an 8-year-old girl made the same mistake, would you say those things to her? Donna asked. She looked shocked and said, "Never." Then Donna asked, "What would you say instead?" My wife answered, "I would tell her everyone makes mistakes. I'd hug her. I'd tell her she's still worthy of love. Then it's time to start speaking to yourself the same way, Donna said. For years, my wife had shown compassion to everyone except herself. Now, she was finally learning to give herself the kindness she'd always given others. I learned something too. I used to tell her, "You're perfect. I admire you." I thought encouraging her that way would help. But during one session, Donna gently corrected me. "Don't tell her she's perfect." I looked confused. Why? Because she doesn't need to believe she's perfect. She needs to know she's loved when she's not perfect. That sentence changed the way I loved my wife. Instead of reassuring her that everything was perfect, I reminded her that she didn't have to earn my love. She already had it. Healing wasn't a straight line. There were setbacks. Some days, she caught herself reorganizing the same drawer twice. Some days, she still became anxious before leaving the house, but something was different. Now, she noticed what was happening. Instead of saying, "I have to fix this," she'd stop, take a deep breath, and quietly say, "This is my fear talking." Awareness gave her a choice, and little by little, she started choosing freedom. About a year after therapy began, something happened that I'll never forget. It was an ordinary evening. We had just finished dinner and we were sitting together in the living room talking. On the coffee table sat an empty mug. A year earlier, she would have stopped our conversation within seconds, carried it to the kitchen, wiped the table, straightened the cushions, and only then relaxed. This time, she noticed the mug. She smiled. Then she reached for my hand and kept talking. The mug stayed there all night. Neither of us mentioned it. We didn't have to. Today, our home is still tidy. She still likes things organized. She's still an incredible nurse. Those qualities never disappeared. They were never the problem. The difference is that today, if I accidentally put the scissors in the wrong drawer, she smiles. Sometimes she laughs. Sometimes she simply says, "I think they belong over there," and that's the end of it. I used to think her perfectionism was about being organized. Then I thought it was about control. I was wrong both times. It was about a little girl who believed she had to earn love by never making mistakes, and about a grown woman finally learning she never had to.